Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to Sparkle on Substack and a really special creative explosion of what that means to me. I've got Kat River here with me today. So it's evening time in Kat's world and morning time in my world. So I'm bringing my full morning energy, and Kat has already told me she's had a big day, and I'm so grateful that she's here with our baby, with our son, to just talk to us all. I'm just so excited that we get to spend time in this space of just having a chat about what social media is, what online spaces can be, and kind of the community that comes through all of that. Our intention really with this call and with this space is just to kind of invite that curiosity for you guys. Creativity and curiosity are like two of my main values, and I just love that we can hold space around what social media could be for us in 2024 at this kind of really kind of crucial awakening of the year point. So thank you all for being here live, those of the you that are. Just to explain how it'll work, we will have some time for questions when we stop recording, but we're going to record this podcast style. And if you're here live, you're welcome to use the chat feature to chat to each other, to suggest things, to spill out, questions to each other. And I'll check back in the chat towards the end to see if you've prompted any questions for Kat. But Kat, welcome. Hi.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for
Hey.
jumping on live. Hello, everyone watching the recording as
It's
well.
so nice, isn't it? We get to do both and split ourselves up in that way. Do you want to kind of tell us a bit about who you are in the world?
Yes, I do. So I'm Kat. This is my son Ren. He's just hanging out on the floor here with me at the moment because my husband and I both work online and we both accidentally booked ourselves in for calls tonight. So one child's asleep, one's with me, husband's in the back room chatting. But basically, I live in the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. And I have basically been creating in the online space for about 10 years now. So that started off in different avenues for business and entrepreneurship, and it's kind of always been with the intention of building a personal brand and building a community. And I guess it always started with community actually first because I didn't have anything to sell when I first started showing up on social media, but I wanted to just show up to just connect with people and to feel seen and to see others and to make friends. And that was always my intention when I first started on social media. And then since then, when you see an opportunity where you can possibly create income streams and leverage and location independence, it makes a lot of sense to learn how to utilize it for yourself. But so that you have a little insight into my style of teaching, is I'm very heart led, soul led. I love the energetics of this sort of stuff. If you want like hardcore strategy, I'm probably not like the go to for that. It's definitely more of this like emotional experience when it comes to social media and when it comes to creating income streams and connecting with community and learning these worlds. And I don't feel like there's enough of that sort of education out there for people. And I feel like if there were, we'd all feel a lot better in these spaces and feel a lot more excited and a lot more equipped with the right skills to kind of navigate it all, because it's a weird time. No one in the history of ever has ever had so much access in the palm of their hand where they're consuming every single day different ideas, opinions, beliefs, stories, what you should or shouldn't do, who you should or shouldn't be. So like, if it's something that overwhelms you, that is so expected and normal and okay, and we can totally learn to work with that as well.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted us to do this work together, because I feel like there's a synchronicity in the way that we curate, right? So the way we've curated our online spaces, and we've come to it, like, I think with very different experiences. Like there's a big age gap between us. Like I'm an elder millennial. Like it feels like so generous of Kat to be like, this is how I see it to me, because it makes a difference to me in the way I see it. And I think that's what you're saying, isn't it? That's how it works. It's like if we can like model how we want to be online and how we want to show up and model that kind of way of inviting community in. Like I often hear people say, oh, sorry, I'll just mute somebody. I often hear people say that feels like such a generous welcome. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Like that was my intention. And that's why I wanted to work with Kat, because we met online via Substack and then quickly like ended up on Instagram chatting. And I just feel like like somehow straight away we were connected. Like it just worked somehow. It was like, oh hi too. And then we just started working together. Like we just started sharing ideas and like wanted to be in each other's spaces and wanted to really support the work that we were doing. And it just felt so generous and so brilliant, you know. And I can't remember exactly when that was. Sometime last year, wasn't it, Kat?
Yeah, not too long ago, maybe like 4 or 5 months ago, maybe.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And that's the power for me of meeting people online where you have this deep connection from the off and you kind of go, what is this and how can we share this? Like, it's not just for us. It's not like, oh, haven't we got this lovely connection? Hey, hey, hey. It's like, oh, look what you can have on the internet. Like, look what's possible. Like, at one point, I was like Googling moving to Australia. I was like, look at Australia. Like, maybe I should move there. I have been and I did love it. But it was that whole world of like, maybe that's where I should spend time with my kids. Like, what's that about? You know, all of those curiosities that I'm talking about. So I really wanted to bring Kat into this space because at the time that I met Kat, I was on a bit of an Instagram detox and I'd decided, okay, like I feel like I've taken Instagram as far as I can and I don't know what it is for me anymore. I realize now I've done the work that I had this very professional take on what Instagram should be because my career in the arts and cultural sector has meant that people expect a certain type of Claire to be online. And in Substack, I could put all of that down because it was a brand new space and I could create from the heart and I could create without all of those eyes on me. And it was like so liberating. So we met and I've kind of shifted how I see Instagram now, thanks to Kat and some other folks that I've met through Kat. And that's been like a really interesting journey for me to sit with and to question because I think at one point I was just going to delete the whole thing. And so it feels really topical to kind of dive into mindset about how Kat personally uses Instagram and has used Instagram and what she wants, because I think we are all, and I can say this, we're questioning it, right? We're going, okay, like we create on Instagram, but only X number of people see it. And that sometimes feels hard. And that sometimes I feel that in my body and I don't know what to do with that. So yeah, I'd love to talk about mindset stuff with you, Kat, and how you feel about the platform, Instagram specifically, I think, to start with.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I would love to just get a feel in the comments. Are you on Instagram and what is your intention with Instagram? Like, is it something that you're hoping to kind of convert people from Instagram over to another platform like Substack? Are you wanting to nourish an Instagram community and grow it into a community for views or an income stream? Like, I just kind of want to be able to gauge where everyone's at so then I can speak accordingly. So if you guys don't mind just popping something in the chat. Yeah. So Instagram's main community and source of connection right now, and it's where I do most of my sales. Beautiful. Instagram's really got me down last year. I've been there for about 9 months and the engagement has nosedived. Yes, I can really relate with that as well. It's going on for, yeah, a lot of people at the moment too. I'm really struggling with Instagram right now. Like Claire said, it feels like no one sees my posts except people I know offline. I want to build a audience for my writing, but I'm not sure if it's the place. Yeah, awesome. Starting my Substack very soon. Great. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly try and read through these. I'm assuming on the replay people can see the comments. Is that right, Claire?
Yeah, and I just want to introduce it all, you know, because it's very here and now. And so people might be listening to this in 6 months' time. I've had that a lot, you know, people are finding my work 6 months down the line, 8 months down the line, and I want it to be very here and now, but also hold what's possible. For the Substack note that I did, so for those of you that don't know yet, Substack Notes is like Substack's inbuilt social media platform where we can all talk to each other. So I did a note asking for people's Instagram handles, and there was some nice chat around that of people kind of, yeah, questioning and leaning into the curiosity. And some people are like, yes, I'm definitely there. And other people are like, I'm definitely not there, but I'm curious. And other people were like, well, here's my handle anyway. So yeah, it seems a real mix.
Totally. Okay, cool. So based on what everyone seems to have said in these comments, as well as what you were just sharing there, Claire, I can kind of relate to where everyone's been at. I can relate to having my reach no like crash and burn for a while. I can relate to feeling really uninspired with the online space and just wanting to run off into the mountains and live in a tiny little shack and create. I can relate to wanting to go big and build and really like, you know, build energy in these spaces. My income stream for at least the last 6 years has been through Instagram on its own. So like I can really resonate with a lot of what everyone here has been saying. So this is kind of like I think it's important to go into the mindset stuff when it comes to social media first, before strategy, before everything else, because if we don't know how to like work with what we feel and believe around social media, then there's no point doing the rest of it anyway. You know, if you feel like social media is constantly against you, but you want income through there and you're trying to show up and hustle this income, there's no point. The energy is going to be off. And something that is really obvious now to me on social media, and most of you would feel this as well, is that when the energy is off on social media, your BS radar just starts doing this. And you know when people aren't being honest or true. And there is an element of understanding each platform for what it is, right? Like Instagram in today's world right now, it didn't start off this way, but right now it is a marketing tool. So if you don't ever want to be marketed to, then maybe Instagram isn't your place. However, if you are actually okay with like an algorithm figuring you out and offering things that it might think are of interest to you, which I personally love, I just type in like baby playmat and I just pray that the right ad pops up for me, right? Like I don't mind being marketed to. I think I'm going to be marketed to if I go down to a cafe and I see all the flyers on the wall anyway. I don't think we can avoid it these days. And so Instagram is a marketing app. Most people think Instagram is a community app. And then when they go there and they don't immediately get the community, they're wondering what's wrong. It's a marketing app first and foremost. And the cool thing is there are ways to actually learn how to like market yourself in a non-weird, non-slimy, non-uncomfortable way. And you can learn these skills of actually being able to show up in like a true way and impact people differently. So it's kind of like this mix of what our perspective around social media is, and then also learning the rules of playing the game, depending on what your intention is. So to start, I would like to say that like if you were to imagine Instagram being completely neutral, it's not good, it's not bad, it's not right, it's not wrong, it's not overwhelming, it's not draining, it's not super exciting, it's nothing, right? It's just completely neutral. Then from that place, which is what social media is, it is completely neutral. What we do as human beings, which is very natural, is we go and borrow beliefs from other people and we listen. We hear somebody say, oh my God, influencers are so fake, right? And then we hear someone else say, oh, I'm too old for social media. I'm too old for this. And someone else comes along and says, I'm really overwhelmed. I just can't figure it out. There's stories, there's posts, there's channels, there's, you know, all the things that's too overwhelming. And then someone else comes along and says, I just make like $5,000 a week on Instagram, no worries. And so all of these little things that we start hearing, we start to internalize. We hear, oh, you can't be genuine and authentic if you have a large following. So therefore, subconsciously, we go, I better stay small on social media. Otherwise, people aren't going to think I'm genuine. People aren't going to think I'm a good person. And so we are the ones as human beings who start creating this idea, whether it's right or wrong, good or bad, and what our experience there means of us. If we post something and we don't get the likes and the engagement that we want, that means that our work was crap, our post wasn't good, we therefore aren't good, when it's not actually an accurate representation at all. As a creator on social media, your experience will be very different to also someone who's just using it to consume. And a lot of the time, those who are just using it to consume don't actually think too much of it. They're just like scroll. Whereas then those creators on the other end, it holds up so much in our value of self and our worth. And that's what we're going to try and separate. So we've got all these beliefs that we borrow and we say, okay, that is now mine. This is what I believe about social media. Remember, social media is neutral. We're creating our experience of it in a sense. And we can also project our experiences from the rest of our life onto social media, mainly because it's kind of in our hand, right? It literally feels like an extension of our limb, an extension of ourself. So, for example, if we didn't feel seen or heard or appreciated in our childhoods or in our high school years or wherever in our past, it can be really easy to then internalize, I'm not valued, people don't see me, no one knows who I am. I'm not confident enough to put myself out there, etc. And then project that onto our social media experience. And then our social media will literally reflect back to us what we're putting out. So again, like I said, people can feel energy and they may not be able to put a finger on it and say, oh my gosh, this person mustn't be confident, but there's a dissonance, right? And especially when you're an intuitive person and you're wanting to, you know, call in clients that are aligned, call in readers that are aligned, call in friends that are aligned, or opportunities, it's important that we're like clear with our energy, right? So hopefully that's landing for everyone so far. Our something that's really important to reflect on now, and maybe you guys can pop this in the comment section. I think it's really good to get some engagement going here. Is what are some of the most natural thought processes that come to your mind when you're thinking of Instagram? Because we'll go with Instagram. Hey, Claire. Yeah. So when you think Instagram, what's the first things that come to your mind? Oh, it feels hard, or it feels good but overwhelming, or I know there's opportunity, but I don't know how to get it, or I don't have time for Instagram. I don't have time to show up there. I'm not an influencer, or I feel a dissonance because I'm a really genuine person and everything feels fake. And obviously those are just examples, but I just love to know, like, what are the immediate, simple, like first liner kind of things that come in. Beautiful. I'm just reading these now. Yeah. So cool. Gotcha. It feels like retail therapy, small fish in a big pond. That's a really good one. It's inspirational, uplifting, amazing. It feels hard, like we have to show up in a certain way. It's a free tool that can support my business. These are great. And I love the diversity here because in many conversations I have, it's a lot of the time people are quite down about it, but I love to see that a lot of people are also enjoying the space, just wanting to learn how to utilize it better, right? So once you can kind of see, okay, my most natural thought processes about Instagram are usually a reflection of our beliefs around Instagram and social media, then we can just have that awareness and bring it back to neutral. So, oh, okay, I think I'm a small fish in a big pond. That was a great one. That's just a belief. You've just found that from someone or something, or just simply the fact that if you're scrolling through so many people, it can feel really overwhelming, and internalized it. And now every time you go on, that's going to be a belief that's going to direct your actions and behaviors on social media, which means you may or may not comment on someone's post because you think, well, they're not going to see it anyway, or they're not going to care anyway. Or you might not post and share what you actually want to say because you feel like, what's the point? Why does it matter? So it's really important to be able to kind of wipe that slate clean and come back to neutrality. And then from that place, kind of sit with like, well, what's my intention? Like, what do I really want to experience here? If there were no rules, if there was, again, like Claire's titled this is like, if the social media rules didn't apply, what would I want to experience here? And to really sit with that. And when I sit with that, even though I've totally had times of like burnout on social media, it's not to say that you'll never feel the range of human emotions in these spaces because they're so intertwined with our lives. But if you were to sit with like, okay, in an ideal world, I would want to be making a full-time income on social media. I would want to feel inspired and like I've got a full creative tap of ideas and insights coming through. I would want the confidence to share them. And I would actually, like, for me personally, I would actually prefer a smaller amount of people, like followers, who really truly like get me, back my work, are so excited to be with me, than to go like viral and hit all these people who literally have no idea, or they're not even interested in what I have to say. So those would be my intentions, right? And so it's great to like challenge your beliefs and be like, okay, if I could wipe the slate clean, if I could completely redesign my experience here, what would it look like? What would it feel like? And know that that is actually possible. A lot of the time, we're really like so loyal to our beliefs. We're so loyal to these identities that we've created for ourselves, because if we were to strip those back, we'd feel really lost in this mystery of life again. And we'd feel really like deep in the unknown of, well, if I'm not the sort of person who does it like this, then who am I? If I'm not the sort of person who gets onto social media and struggle, who am I? if I'm not the sort of person who like always feels like I'm not being seen or met in these spaces, then who would I be? And that can be really uncomfortable and really overwhelming to think about. So that's why we like cling so strongly to these ideas that we've created, which don't always exist. And then our negativity bias, which is a part of our brain that seeks and finds evidence to prove to ourselves that our beliefs are correct, because that tells our brain and our body that we're safe, even if it doesn't serve us. So if you're, let's say, coming on and being like, okay, no one ever sees my stuff, then we'll create content accordingly, we'll create and network accordingly with the expectation that no one's going to see it anyway. So what's the point? And then when it's not received or the algorithm flops or whatever, we say, see, I told you, no one can see me. No one can appreciate what I have to say. And that's when we get into these loops of seeking and looking for evidence all the time. Oh, look, there's another influencer. There's another perfect house. That's not realistic. That's not realistic. Therefore, I must be more genuine than that. And then it's just like this confirmation loop over and over. And so the cool thing is, as we shift and focus more on like what we're actually wanting to experience there, our brain will start to seek and find evidence to support that too. And you'll find that then your actions start to change. You start showing up differently. You're more willing to like learn new skills. Oh, you know what? Actually, I've been making reels wrong this whole time. Turns out I can make reels in this way, learn the rules, play the game, have a better experience. And it doesn't have to be so linked to who we are. Just because we
Right.
want to learn how to like make a reel successful doesn't mean that all of a sudden we've abandoned all of our values and who we are as a human being
For
in order to
sure.
like, you know.
And
So
and it,
that's
and yeah, sorry, Kat. And in all of that, there's a catalyst, right? There's a creative catalyst around our personal practice as creators. So people that are here want to create, right? Like that's why people have shown up to this call. And in my experience, what happened when I met you and some other people that used Instagram in a completely different, very soulful way, it was the catalyst, it was the shift. It was like, oh, this is it. This is what I've needed to have reflected. And I couldn't find it. Like I could find my colleagues easily, like I could find some friends, from different experiences over the years, some professional friends, some like other friends, but I couldn't find this like soul work that I was searching for in a way that felt authentic and true. And then I found you guys, and it all felt different. And in that journey to get there, I had taken Instagram off my phone multiple times and questioned, as a co-creator, because co-creation is my practice, what am I doing? And that's why I found Substack. And so when I came to Substack, it was for two reasons, really. It was, well, my husband told me you need to be on Substack. And I was like, oh, Emma Gallon's on Substack as well. That's an interesting thing. What is it? Um, but it was really about how can I hear my own voice in a world that isn't connected to all of the things you've just talked about, all of those beliefs, all of those things, all of the ways that I've seen Instagram shift and the people who use it shift and change. How can I quiet that noise as a creator and just purely create? And if I do that, what could that be? So it was all these beautiful questions. And I had plenty to say without any audience, it was like, oh, I've got plenty to say. And so that brought me to Substack. And then very slowly and gently, which is slightly different now, but very slowly and gently, that brought me an audience for my work and co-creators and. So yeah, I really wanted to kind of hear your story of like where you found Substack and what gave you the push. Like, had people told you about it for a little while? Like, had you heard about what other people were doing? Were you seeking something else? Like, what was that like for you?
At the time, I was about to do like a 3 or 4 months off Instagram, right? I was in one of those burnout periods. And I just had a friend I was following on Substack who was writing semi-regularly, like maybe once or twice a month. And I just clicked through and I was reading her post. And then I was like, hold on a second. If she's made a Substack, like I didn't even know Substack was a thing you could make. I literally had never heard of it in my life. Um, and then I just had this moment of like, oh, well, maybe I could write on Substack while I'm off Instagram because I just need somewhere to put my thoughts, right? And there's a few people that would want to follow me and like keep up to date with stuff behind the scenes. So I just made one and I just shared for maybe a week on Instagram stories. Like I'm moving over to Substack. I'm going offline here. If you want to keep updated, join my newsletter. So it was very much a newsletter. I didn't see it so much as I didn't know it was a publishing platform. I didn't know that it could be actually quite a professional space. I literally just thought it was a alternative to MailChimp originally. And then since then, I've realized how there's so much potential there since finding you mainly, Claire, because you were the first person I'd met who was teaching on it. And I was like, oh, it's actually something worth teaching about. What is this? So I went and dived into your work and I was like, cool. So if you're creating a whole Substack about teaching people how to utilize this space, I might want to pay attention because it means that there's something more than just, transferring an email list or something like that. And that's what got me really excited by it initially. And I can really see a difference in even when I look at my back end and it's like me just cruising along, posting every 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week, 4 weeks, meet Claire. And then my graph just starts going like this because I started learning like, oh, it's worth actually like educating myself about this space.
And the excitement is tangible because we have Substack notes, right? So we get to create within our post space and talk to our audience and our community, however they receive that work. They might receive it in their email inbox. They might be receiving it on their phone while they're kind of, making dinner for the kids. Like it lands where it lands. And then there's this huge, big 24/7 party called Substack Notes. And you're like, oh, hi everyone. Hi everyone that might want to know what I'm doing. And yeah, it was just so beautiful. It's brand new from April last year. If you guys are coming to Substack now and you don't know that, or if you're coming to Substack now and you're like, why has it got so many portals and platforms? Yeah, it's from April, right? So people are still cultivating what Substack Notes can be. It's been compared with Twitter. It's been compared with a more sophisticated platform like more akin to LinkedIn. It's been compared to all sorts of things, but for me, it's really its own thing. And for me as a co-creator, it's about that. It's about who else is at the party today, right now? Like who else wants to chat about this particular thing? And that's why I love it. I don't know whether you feel the same about it, Kat.
Yeah, I do really enjoy notes. Mainly, I see it as a place to, yeah, like network and meet new people. Like, the road of a creative can often be really lonely. And sure, we're all going to be writing behind the scenes and creating behind the scenes and always showing up for our craft because it's just the path of being a creative person. But when there's opportunities to connect and know that everyone else there is on that path as well in their own way, it's really liberating. And not to say that everyone's going to share your own opinions and values and those sorts of things, but I found that it was when I started networking through notes that things started to grow because I was finding people I wanted to read, which therefore I was spending more time on the app reading people and being like, wow, these people are really cool and I'm really excited to be here. And there's a different caliber of content being produced and created here. And then I would, be in like the notes is how I found people. I didn't really find people originally too much on the explore page, like a few initially. Um, but it was through seeing like, oh, Claire just tagged this person. I'm going to go have a little look. And then, oh, that person's got their notes tab. I'll go look there and see what they're sharing. And you just kind of get sucked down all these cool little rabbit holes. And it's kind of like a choose your own adventure situation.
It is choose your own adventure. And I guess like, you and I are quite similar in that we've dedicated quite a lot of time to that. Like we've wanted to do that. We've been called to do that. Like my Substack experience feels very full as a reader, so separate to the work that I do around creating Substack and staying sparkly there, there is this kind of real love for reading people's work. And that is very new because I couldn't tell you like anything I've read on Instagram over the last year. Like there's nothing in there, but I could tell you loads of Substacks that I read that I loved and that changed everything for me. Like the sophistication of writing, the way I felt welcomed, the way I felt part of something for like a moment, the way that I felt soothed after a difficult day or whatever, there's just so much emotional connection there for me. Like I'm very emotionally intelligent and intuitive anyway. So I think I do bring that, but I think something around how I'd consume content on Instagram, like you say, I had to kind of put all that down. Like that's not my place for that stuff. Like it can be fun and creative and it's a marketing tool and I can be marketed to and I can chat on the DMs and voice note people and I love all of that. But like to get that depth of connection, I just feel like Substack is my place for that.
Absolutely. And that's why I love it too, And I just, you know what Substack did? It liberated my Instagram experience because I was trying to make Instagram everything. I was
Yeah.
trying to have all the depth and all the connection and all this marketing and all the sales. And sometimes they're a little bit conflicting. And I was trying to figure out, how do I make all of this in this one space? And then when I found Substack, and I was like, oh, I can go here for the depth, and I can get some connection and meet some really cool people and meet people outside of the echo chamber I had on Instagram. That was really refreshing too, because I found that what I had to say on Instagram, so many people kind of talking about those sorts of things. And I was like, oh, like how do I say this in my way differently? And I feel like sometimes I would feel a bit influenced, or whereas I go to Substack and I can stay pure in my voice, and it'll also be received differently because people are like, oh, I've never heard of that. And it sparks all this new conversation that wasn't happening over here. People are trained to kind of be stalkerish on Instagram, right? You just scroll past, you don't even like it or interact. So somebody doesn't know if you've seen or enjoyed that piece of content that they've put out. And it's so easy to go and like go watch everyone's highlights and stories and posts, and they wouldn't even know. And so there's this element of like, you can be hidden in the shadows on Instagram. And if that's the way that you're treating the app, if you're one of those like kind of lurking, on, just go have a look at this and have a look at this, and you're not putting yourself to that person and say, hey, I'm really enjoying what you're having to share here, you'll have that energy reflected back to your own experience on Instagram, right? People will be lurking you and give you no feedback. And so you think you're reaching nobody. So I always encourage people to actually be social on social medias. Like, go and lean into creating community, comment on the things, like the things, message the person, like make that effort to keep it social. Otherwise it's kind of, not
It's like a
it's not going to
disconnect, isn't it? Like it's a
yeah.
human to human disconnect, like on a massive scale. Like, I remember when you had to have the 10,000 followers to get the swipe up, and I was like, okay, like that's possible. I could do that. Like I could put energy there. I can make that happen. And then every post was so disappointed. And when they brought in the little link sticker, I was like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. How liberating. Like I don't have to do any of those things. I just have to speak to the people that want to be here. And that feels so nice. And so, yeah, so good. It's like, here's a human that wants to speak to me right now about this particular thing. Let's do that. Like that's enough. For me, it feels enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm more than happy. I'm Firstly, you totally guide this conversation because I love the way that you're facilitating this.
Oh, thanks.
But I'm more than happy to, it's a craft. That's a craft in itself, isn't it? It's a skill set. Um, to chat a bit about like a few do's and don'ts when it comes to like Instagram engagement. Because I know
Yeah.
obviously the downside for people is like when you are putting your heart out there and it's not being received, and
Mm,
that feeling of like yelling into the void, and then
yeah.
be like, how do I do
How do
something
I do
different?
that? And I
Because
think
otherwise,
wh
right?
where I was hoping we could go is there's that kind of, not that we have to move all over our Instagram folks to Substack, but there is something about leaning into, you know what, guys, like there's another way. Like you don't have to be scrolling. You can have a lovely time, but do it in a conscious way where I'm heading to Instagram to have a lovely scrolly time. If you're looking for connection and you're feeling lonely as a creator, or if you're feeling lonely in your work, I invite you over here. So all of my Instagram content is to get people to Substack, either to use it. I don't mind if they connect to me or not, like that's up to them. But that is my intention. It's like, I want to share what I'm doing there. I want to model it. I want to talk about it. I want to get other people to just go and have a go and to not feel lost and confused and overwhelmed. And so the resources that I've created for free are to try and help people to just have a creative space, because it's my belief that we've never ever had a place to create as generous as Substack. Like if you think about it, you can podcast for free, you can set up a membership, a paywall, and have stuff paywalled. Like you can create a whole course, you can do whatever you want there. And it's simple to use, it's easy to use. And so when people have been trying to kind of follow somebody else's footprints on social media and thinking, if I just keep feeding it, eventually I might get here, or eventually I might go viral. My intention is like, what about if we sidestep that and just use Instagram as a beautiful tool and know that it can only be so much to us, like it can only give us so much, and it might change again, who knows. And I don't know whether you feel like that. I know you've referenced in the past, like potentially an exit strategy, a temporary exit strategy or a long-term exit strategy, but I'd love you to kind of talk about how you see the two things working in this like beautiful congruent way with you in the center as a creative, Kat. Like what is that for you right here and now?
Totally. Yeah, I find when I didn't have all my eggs in the one basket, it makes it a lot easier. And it's, there's this thing of like, don't chase two rabbits. I feel like they can really help each other out. And that's kind of, I think, what a lot of people are probably here on this workshop for as well, is like, how do I invite this audience on Instagram across the Substack so I can nurture the same audience in two different ways? I can nurture them here with depth for those who want depth, and I can nurture them here with photos and visual and connection and messages and stuff, right? Sorry, baby. So first things first is think about your Instagram audience. So much of our energy often goes into reaching new people, trying to find new clients, new audience, new views, new. However, first things first, are you servicing those who are already there? Are you saying thank you for voting for me with your follow and your attention and your time? Are you saying thank you for them to be gifting you that on Instagram? Because none of us are entitled to anything in these spaces, right? So first things first is, are you servicing your community who's already there? Secondly, are you actually ready for expansion? Because so many of us say that we want it. We want to be seen so badly. We want to be acknowledged. We want to like have the career boom or whatever it is. And this is like a real question, if 10,000 people rocked up on your doorstep, on your Instagram doorstep tomorrow morning to your account, would you be ready? Do you have enough there to share with them who you are and what you're about? Because so often we want this thing, but like our accounts are not a holding place for it. And that's where the energetics can come in, right? Like you're creating this container that holds an experience. And so, if you can see it that way and be like, okay, well, actually, I don't have any, like my bio isn't clear. I don't have any links that people can click to find my work or my Substack in my bio. I don't have any highlights explaining what I do and don't do or anything about myself. I don't really share much of my story. I don't really share much of my values on here. So then it's like, well, how is someone going to land there and know whether they're aligned with you or not? How are they going to recognize themselves in you? Like that is your job as someone who is using the social media space to be like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. So that when people do arrive, they can see really quickly, because people unfortunately don't have big attention spans. They can see, am I aligned with you or not? Follow, not follow, whatever. But if 10,000 people rocked up tomorrow, what is their experience of your account going to be? And will they stick around? Especially imagine if there were 10,000 people who are completely like your avatar, your most aligned, like a best friend vibe. Would they be able to recognize that by landing on your account? That's a really good spot to start. And then the second aspect of this conversation is, how do we invite people over to somewhere like Substack? Because most people don't know what it is. Most people are feeling really overwhelmed at the thought of another app or another platform. Especially, and it doesn't even matter if you say, oh, but it's way deeper and it's really cool, and like I'm sure you'll love it because I really love it, and if you're anything like me, then you'll love it. Like they don't care. Sell them as hard as you want. Like people don't understand the app. So if you genuinely, like, this is my perspective on it, if I want people to come and read what I have to say, I can't rely on mystery. I can't rely on come and see what I have to share each week, because there'll be a small handful that will. But most people want to know clearly what they're going to receive. Even though Substack is like a low price point offer, most people's subscriptions are like anywhere between $5 and $20. I'm just thinking Australian. I'm not sure if that's worldwide, but it's like a low price point offer. Even though it's a low price point offer, you still got to essentially sell it, but you don't have to sell it as in, hey, come join my newsletter in your stories every 5 days, because that's going to feel weird. And also using certain words will like shadow your engagement on Instagram, right? So again, it comes back to that learn the rules, play the game, to match your higher intention of like actually being able to impact people or help people or etc. So basically, when we're wanting to invite people across, are you happy for me to go into this bit now, Claire? Do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, for
So if
sure.
we're
Yeah.
wanting to invite people across, I've learned, how creative can I be with this? How can I like kind of trick Instagram? Because when you say things like subscribe, pay, like a price, um, join, program, anything that's a little bit silly in the words, Instagram's going to flag it. They're going to say, hey, you're not paying for ads. We're not going to give you all your engagement. And then you just don't reach people anymore. So it doesn't even matter what you say, right? So it's like, how do we get creative about this? And so what I found is I would go to my latest Substack that I just written that I was wanting to promote. And I would go through and I would screenshot like all the little parts of it that I felt like seemed interesting or seemed like alluring, maybe because they didn't have complete context, or, like little value adds. And I would go onto my Instagram stories and I would like put them all up and stick them on. Maybe I'd stick some comments that had already been left, or testimonial kind of, or not testimonial sorts of word, like, when people subscribe to you and they tell you why they subscribe. So I might
Yes, like
stick
a
those up.
little paid subscriber note, isn't it? And actually, that's beautiful. And then we've got the blurbs as well. So the blurbs are people that
Yeah,
have been reading our work for a while, and that is public information. So that's fine to use as testimonials, no problem.
totally. Yes, those. So I'll put those all up on stories, and then I'll put the link straight to my Substack in through the little link icon on Instagram stories that you can do. And that will give people like a little tiny taste. I'll put a nice photo at the back. If you don't have really nice photos, Instagram is a visual app. It's important to like learn how to use that as a visual app. So I would go and like find a photo of Pinterest or of somewhere that can do a nice background. And then all of those I would be saving to a highlight. So people can go through and click a Substack highlight and go and see all of the things you've ever written on there. That's like for stories. Even guys, like people will so connect so much deeper with you if you put your face on there and talk and say, hey guys, I've just written this amazing article about this topic. I'd love for you to go have a read. Here's the link. If you do that, people are going to connect and watch so much deeper. So there's that aspect. The side segue of that is if you're showing up on social media outside of your Substack time, right? So like the kind of the rule of promotion is to every 9 things you post, one of them be about your Substack or whatever you're trying to sell. Because otherwise people just assume that they know what you're going to say. They're like, oh, well, I already know that those stories are going to be about Substack. And if I'm not interested in that right now, I'm just not going to watch it. If they stop watching, the algorithm will stop showing you up. And in 6 months' time, when maybe you write about something that they could really benefit from, you won't even pop up on their feed. So you want to actually be sharing about your life. And this is where personal branding comes in. This is where saying, hey, I'm actually a human being. These are things I do. How can you like drip feed your values, who you are, funny moments in your life, things you enjoy? Like, and people, I don't know, guys, like people are nosy. Just put your breakfast on there. They don't like, they're like, oh, cool, you eat eggs for breakfast too. Amazing. We're so aligned. Like, it's literally a thing.
Yeah.
Whenever I see someone like wearing the same brand as me, I'm not really that into fashion. I like wear 2 different brands, but I'm like, oh, cool. We must have the same aligned values because that's an eco brand and I wear it, So it's just these little clues. Your job is like seed clues and also value if you want to. So this is like the personal brand. You're drip feeding whatever you're selling through your personal brand. You're not drip feeding a personal brand through a big sales thing. And you'll find that you're going to be perceived more human because of it. You're going to connect with people differently. If people feel like they can connect with you, they'll show up. And here's the thing, if you and one other person wrote the exact same Substack, let's just pretend word for word, exactly the same. What would make somebody read yours over theirs? And that is if they feel connected to you. So that's your job, is to create these micro moments and opportunities for connection through social media. You'll find if you use your voice, if you use your face, if you share your values, like, people can feel you and connect to you. Just think, who are the people I feel connected to on social media? How do they do it? And just like find clues and figure out ways that that feels good for you to do. And then the other way that I've been able to drive quite a few people through to Substack is taking a role of like educating a little bit on Substack and being like, okay, I'm going to literally make this as easy as possible for you. And what that looks like is sharing. I just would get into my stories and talk like, this is what Substack is. It's really cool. I've figured out like this is where I can give my depth and my insights, my, more meaningful content over here. This is how you can stay up to date with me. If Instagram ever disappeared or I ever dropped off Instagram, it's kind of like you're signing up for an email list, just and educating on how they can use that space. Because if you make it easy for them, then they're like, oh, I'll give that a try. You'll probably find as well, like I have people messaging me now after over a year on Substack being like, oh, I finally signed up and read your stuff, because they just see it. A
Yeah.
little bit of like a hello
Yeah.
every week. Hello, I'm over here. Hello,
Yeah.
I'm over here. Finally, they answer the call. And then
And it's okay to have been saying that. I think that sometimes we sort of will tell ourselves, oh, I've said that too much. And you were just talking about that, Kat. And it's like, it's okay because this is our world, right? Like, we're passionate about it. This is our world. This is where we're creating. So we're just sharing that, that's what we're talking about and what we're sharing. When we are in the space of Substack, so when we're in that space of Substack notes, you probably will be on the app. Probably, you can look at some of this stuff in stats, but people are usually already on Substack. And what we're finding is Substack notes is the writers of Substack and not the readers. So we're talking to our writer colleagues. So there's a really unique time right now where it's like everyone's potential collaborator, right? Everybody's potentially like doing or trying to do a similar thing to you, although they've got a different topic that they're talking about, or a different flavor to the Substack. And I know, Kat, you've been like really generous in sharing snippets of your world on Substack notes in a similar way to you do on Instagram, and then also kind of cheerlead in other spaces and other people. I wonder if you feel, even at this point, just this kind of, well, I mean, I suppose we're coming up to a year of notes, but where you are now, like, do you feel like any of that is strategic, or do you feel like that is just energy spilling out that you want to share? Like, how does that sit with you on Substack notes?
Yeah, I feel like I am like that mix of like, I'm just really excited by a space, and then it's also strategic because I don't know, I really feel like there's place for both, and being strategic doesn't, again, it's like questioning our beliefs around things, right? Like, there was once upon a time I thought, okay, if you're too strategic and too structured with how you do things, it's almost like manipulative, but it's really not. It's like just really premeditating, what your choices are and what likely outcomes of that is. And learning ways to kind of maximize opportunity, I guess. So when it comes to notes, like I would just kind of show up there every day. And I only do that because I'm already showing up in other places every day. It was just easy. But I did find when I was showing up on notes daily, they would start gathering traction because people would start recognizing my name over and over again. These are people who've never followed me before, right? So they'd recognize my name over and over again, and slowly and surely they would start to interact. And so even though that wasn't strategic, it's probably a strategy someone would tell you to do, it show up daily, right? But I was just excited about being in that space. Sometimes, so for example, something that we did was, once there was enough of us that we'd found that had kind of similar values in their writing and mindset on Substack, we created like a little group on Instagram that started off really small, where we would then just kind of share resources and kind of get around each other's posts. And I feel like that was a really nourishing space because it felt like there was an opportunity to talk about the strategy side of Substack, without having to always talk about it on Substack publicly. So that's something that you can do if you and a friend like are both kind of on Substack, or you meet somebody on Substack, like share resources with each other and have that chat, because it can be really helpful. And a lot of the time, if you were to go and like listen to podcasts about growing on other platforms, a lot of the content is very applicable to something like Substack. basically I just think of it from the sake of like human nature, right? Like notes is people just are wanting to be a bit more casual, a bit more like having a nice chat. And then when you can invite them into your private space, and that is like your Substack. Something I also found important with notes is to really lean into the conversations happening there, because that is like, you would be surprised how many people will just see your comment and click through to see what you're about based on your comment. So that was where the strategy started coming in for me. So all of my interactions with like friends and people I followed on Substack, always genuine, in the sense that like I'm only going to comment on something I genuinely have a bit of interest in, or I want to make that comment. I'm not just trying to like think of robotic things to say for the sake of it. Otherwise it would feel not fulfilling, very draining. I'm a mom, I have no time for that, right? So it has to feel good. But someone might comment something and you might think of a little funny thing to say, like lean into that, and instead of thinking, oh no, but I won't comment it, do it, and get into the conversations under people's posts. Like I would follow people who, sorry, I would be subscribed to people that had written about things that I was really interested in. It's like I wouldn't just respond to the author, even though I loved what they'd written. I'm like, oh my God, there's a whole community here commenting under this person's post who like I actually can connect with, and they're leaving really thoughtful comments, and like I'm aligned with these values. So I would be commenting and interacting with people in other people's communities. And I found that that was really amazing, because it made me actually feel more connected to the space and emotionally invested. And of course, people were coming over to look at my stuff if I've just left a really thoughtful, like considerate comment and responded to a question that they had or something like that. Substack Substack Writers also does a post each week, I think, for the digest, or maybe monthly, where they're asking for recommendations. I would recommend my friends' posts and stuff I'd read over the week that were really beneficial and I enjoyed. And I found like that was just such a celebration feeling of like
Yeah, it's so
they would
celebratory. It's so
good,
nice to
you know,
do, isn't it? Yeah. But
and
I love what you were saying about the comment spaces, Kat, because it goes back to that, like, okay, so you've set your Substack up, like, here it is, this is your home on Substack, this is like a free post or a paywall post or whatever it is, whatever community you're part of. But we know, because of the way Substack has taught us about this, that though they're encouraging community building on Substack. So Farah Storr, who is head of UK and Europe writer relations now, started this last year, where it was like, I want to talk about this, who wants to talk about it? And it didn't have to be a fully formed, beautifully written, well-researched post. It was just like, I, as a writer, as a creator on Substack, want to talk about this, who else wants to talk about it? And that was that massive permission slip. I'd been doing that, you'd been doing that, but then now Substack were like, we want you all to do this, you know, and it's not that you have to do it, but it's just that the platform lends itself to that. And then once you meet those other kind of kindred spirits, like those are the people that then go and seek out your Instagram handle and drop you in a voice note and we're like, I just wanted to connect you with you on this. And that's that human connection, right? Like it's just so beautiful and organic, and it's happening right now. Like it's not just happening for me, it's happening for people that I work with, it's happening for people that are telling me about this stuff all the time. It's so vibrant and possible, and that's why social media rules do not apply. Like we don't have to come with a strategy, we just have to bring ourselves and like try it all out and see how it all feels and be our human self on the internet. Does that make sense?
absolutely, it so does. And like primarily just have fun with it. Like everyone seems to take
Yes.
it so seriously, right? Like what if
Yeah.
what if you just playing in the space in your joy
Mm.
would actually take you to all these places that you want to go, that you think strategy is going to take you, but just being in your joy is what will do it. And I felt like last year for me was very charged with just simply passion and joy and curiosity. And that's probably why I felt so fulfilled in the space there. And it's like when you start taking it so seriously, and I'm like, oh my gosh, got to do a post this week. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I got to bring back the magic again, because like that's when it starts to shift.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to quickly, Serena just shared that like possibly there's shadow banning of the word Substack in posts on
Oh yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yes, totally, because anything that guides
Takes you
people off
off the
the Instagram
platform. Yeah.
platform, they'll want to shadow. But the ways that I've found around that is, for example, I will do a reel and I might take aspects of my post and think of a creative way to put it into a reel. So a really cool thing to know about Instagram reels is if you do like a 5 to 7 second reel, no longer, and then do like a paragraph, a really catchy part of your Substack, or a question that you've asked in your Substack that you think is going to be relatable to people. So for example, I did one that was like, so you say you want the village, right? Referring to parents craving this village and to parent with other parents. And then I said, but you, and then I did all these different points as to why people don't get the village. And I made it really quick. And then in the caption, I, beefed it up a bit. And then I just directed people to subby is my code word. But like, because it was a short reel and a big caption, what happens is people go to read the caption because it's an interesting question or a hook, so to speak. It can be a soulful hook. It doesn't need to feel silly. And while they're reading the caption, the reel is looping. Therefore, it's gaining views, so it gets boosted on the algorithm differently. So I've had a couple of my reels hit, like hundreds of thousands of people, and they were for Substack. And so one of them, I probably noticed maybe like 100 free subscribers come in overnight. And like, I think this is where we have to remind ourselves that miracles happen, magic exists, and you never know what's going to hit the right people when. You never know when something's going to go viral. And it might be the very thing you don't even expect. And you could wake up tomorrow with like, 50 or 100 or 300 free subscribers or paying subscribers. Like, you just actually don't know. So that's why it's like worth learning the rules and playing the game, because if your intention is like, let's say, turn Substack into an income stream that can nourish your family so that you can go and travel, so that you can like live more comfortably, so that you feel like you've got a creative outlet, like that's why you're learning the rules and playing the game. It's not just to sell. It's like there's always that bigger intention. So that's what I've done with some reels on Instagram. Also, let me think. Instead of just saying subby, I will also say to people, I've written about this, comment and then something, a word below, and I can send it to you. So you don't say I send you the link, because again, link will get flagged. Just say comment below and I'll DM it. And so then what you do is you get your Substack link and you're actually DMing it to people who
start the conversation.
The comments are going to help your engagement, and then you're actually like having this in-person connection with people in their DMs. Here it is, babe, hope you enjoy it. Like, it can be really simple. And I would say that people are more likely to go and read it as well when they've actually had that interaction in DMs with you. It's encouraging it.
It's that real connect, isn't it? If you do, I know there's a software that does that now. So like, if you're thinking, oh, well, my account's probably too big to do that, like there's a software called ManyChat where you can set that up to do it. And so people comment a word and then it'll automatically find them and send them. And you can put a personal message on there. And like, a lot of the people in the entrepreneurial space are really, really raving about this platform, this plugin. So I've not used it personally, like I'm not recommending it, but I just know it exists and I love and could do the personal thing that Kat is speaking about, because I have a relatively small account and I would want to do that. Like, that sounds a beautiful thing to do. And then I'll probably voice note you because I love doing a voice note. I just feel like it cuts through everything. We're running out of time, but I did want to touch on this, and this is why I voice note people, so it sort of segues in nicely. When we have tightly held our online, and I'm going to use the word personal brand, like I don't know if I have got a personal brand, but Russell Noety would tell me I have got a personal brand because I exist on the internet, right? So we've held this really tightly, and like we've moved through all of the strategy and we've done all the things and we've like perfected everything that we want to say and like sense checked it, and we've used the perfect image that lands in someone's psyche, and they have a version of us in their minds that is not the person we actually are, right? It just doesn't exist. It's just not real. It's just in their minds. If we were to then meet them in real life or voice note them, best thing, or see them on a Zoom call, all of that disintegrates. And then they're like, there's the human. So some of the belief stuff Kat was talking about at the beginning is because people have built up these beliefs by just literally landing on an Instagram homepage and going, oh, judgment, comparison. It's like, oh no, like don't do that. Like see the human, like connect to the human. And so yeah, I feel like that is some of why I am enjoying, oh, it's a lot of why I'm enjoying Instagram again. I don't know whether, I mean, you do this anyway, Kat, but I don't know whether that lands with anybody watching here live, or if you want to journal on that and like you want to hold those two polar opposites of like personal brand and what we build up versus like actual human with the breakfast, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like, yeah. And I mean, yeah, like you said, we're probably going to run out of time a little bit, but um, just that comparison piece, like just we have to take responsibility and check ourselves with what we're projecting on other people, and give ourselves a chance to reveal ourselves to those who have chosen to subscribe to us because they want to know more. Like
It's a choice.
it should be
Yeah.
a safe place to be seen. And obviously with any experience of being seen, we're opening ourselves up to being perceived. But I think if we keep responsible for the way that we perceive others and reveal our true selves, then it's like people can't make something up if you're giving them the truth on a silver platter. Like they can't go and make up something because you're like, well, here's exactly
This
what
is
I am.
it. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
it. I love that. And so we're going to end the recording there, but we're going to hang out for just like another 5 minutes or so because Kat, it's bedtime. It's bedtime for baby. Hi, gorgeous. Hi, gorgeous boy. And I have my daughter downstairs too. So thank you all for being here live. I'm going to stop recording. Thank you for watching on replay. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you to Kat.